And we are live. Thank you, thousands of people here at the Long Island Achievement Center. Thank you for having us. Jim and Erica Long. I'm Andy Lockwood. This is Pearl Lockwood. We like to call this presentation Beauty and the Beast. We're going to be talking about college planning. Yes?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
Good idea. So this is a nice size group, and I think the format that works best with this group is to hear from you what your specific questions are first, and then Pearl, with her immaculate penmanship and Vanna White stylings, can go to the board and write them down. Instead of us dictating to you what we think you should hear, which will probably come out anyway, but I like getting your feedback first, just to just to tell us. And if you're watching on Facebook, also we'll be checking the comments periodically, so you can chime in with your questions. So we can talk about financial aid, we can talk about getting into college, we can talk about both. I'm very well versed with 1986 Boston Celtics trivia. That comes up, panoply of areas. So any specific questions, just fire them out. For example, if you're shy. This happened the other night, and then everything went crazy. Anyone have questions on the 529? No? Yes. One.
If you
Okay.
can elaborate on best uses of and
Okay.
best places to put your money.
Good. Well, so that's actually a related thing. So for the 529 and other places for money. Okay. Who else?
I have an annuity. Is it true that you can tap into that for educational purposes before 59 and a half?
Okay, so annuities. So just a disclaimer, we're not financial people, we're independent college consultants, but we know enough about, and I actually, as Jim said, I'm a recovering attorney. I used to be in-house counsel to a publicly traded brokerage, so I know enough about, the stuff to, I guess, be dangerous, or to tell brokers not to sell things that aren't suitable. And, but we can definitely give you specific, ideas about all that stuff. Annuities. So you got that? All right, what else? Don't be shy. Come on, you thousands of people. Yep.
When to start the financial aid process and the different avenues to explore in terms of what kind of financial aid is available and when to apply.
Great. Okay, so timeline for financial aid. Good. Great. We don't always cover that, so that's a good one.
Is there a level of income at which you should just forget about looking for financial aid?
Okay. That would be the income ceiling, I believe. Good. Or that.
And financial aid treatment of business owners.
Good. Business owners. Isn't your handwriting just wonderful?
Yes.
Okay. No one took the hint on that one. Okay, what else? Any other questions? Yeah.
How to research and find scholarship opportunities.
Great. Researching scholarship opportunities. This side of the room can participate also. It's not just, So it's just totally okay. And you can also reserve the right to ask questions later.
Who was the sixth man for the Boston Celtics?
That would be Bill Walton. I can do that one. In 84. Yeah. But thank you.
Not in 86.
86.
88. Well, he was later. I can't remember when. Yeah.
Play with Bird.
Yeah.
How about
Thank you.
some of the experience you've had after people have gotten acceptance letters and their actions after they get an acceptance letter?
So after they get their award, possibly trying to improve the award?
Correct.
Okay, so negotiating, that's usually a lively topic in this very exciting subject matter of financial aid.
Andy, I think also it's very valuable when you get just some 30,000-foot statistics on what the lay of the land is, what it actually costs, who actually gets it where, some of the unknown truths.
Okay.
Inconvenient truths, as Al Gore would say.
Yeah. So high level, just overview, I guess.
Where to apply,
Where to apply, what forms to use.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
Colleges that they should be shooting for and not shooting for.
Colleges, okay. Yeah, the interesting thing about college is some are a lot more generous than others.
Okay.
So that's a good question.
And how soon really should you start the process?
When? Okay. How
Yeah.
soon to start? How soon? Or is that? Do we already talk about it? Okay, good. Okay. Is that enough to get us going? Again, feel free to fire away while we're going. All right. So, do you want to decide what we do first tonight? Today? I mean.
Well, it's, even though it was the last, I think maybe the overview would be a
Okay.
good place to start.
All right, good. So, all right. So there's in college funding there are, I guess, 3 different sources or places to look. There's the need-based system. I don't know if you've heard the term need-based, but that is money that you are awarded based on the financial need that you demonstrate, based on something called the Estimated Family Contribution, or EFC. So we'll talk a little bit about how that is calculated. That's need-based aid. Second category is merit, and that's typically from the college endowments themselves, although there are also little outside scholarships that tend to be little. So there's really 2 subcategories of merit. And the third category is, believe it or not, in the tax code. And we're not accountants, but we can say a few words about that. So they're not going to get equal treatment today. Who here has someone who's in high school now as a high school senior, class 2017? One. And what about someone who's a junior, class of 2000? Okay, that's more. Okay, more than you, more than half. Okay. And what about someone younger? Okay, a couple of repeat offenders, recidivists.
Yeah.
Thank you. She was
We always get those.
yeah, Pearl was a prosecutor in Queens County before, so don't get on her bad side. I mean, it was only, when was that, 96?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's still angry after all these years. Still prosecutorial.
I'd watch out, 20 years, they're getting out this year.
I know. I'm gonna wear a disguise.
Yeah.
I'll change the name.
Right. So who knows how much 1 year of college costs? I guess that's sort of basic information at a private college. Yeah.
60 grand.
Could be 60 grand. Could be, some of them are now more than $70,000.
Yes,
Who's 80? USC?
80 USC, 84 cost of attendance at USC.
So-
Like Hofstra or something like that.
She's in the 50s, I
Right.
guess, or maybe, yeah. So those numbers, just so you, I don't know, this is really a bright spot. It's hard to say that in this context, but tuition at a school that costs 60 or 70 or whatever may be only $50-something thousand. But when you add in all the other stuff, room and board, fees, you know, because different majors sometimes have different fees,
Yeah.
right? Once you add in all that stuff, then you get to what is referred to as the cost of attendance at a college. And you know, so the bad news is the cost of attendance is really high. I don't think you came here to learn that. You probably had a sense of that. Other bad news is that college costs have gone up faster than virtually every other measurement, every other indices like healthcare or cost of living. So cost of living may have gone up 300% in the last 25 or so years. College costs 1,100%. And why is a whole other topic, but but the good news is that when a college financial aid office awards you issues you a financial aid award, they're basing off that high number, not the lower tuition only number. So if there is a bright spot, that's it. So what about the cost at an out of state college? How much do you think that is?
35.
It's a little higher than 35 for the most part. It can be in the 40s and 50s, but some are. I don't think there probably are some still in the 30s, but most of them are in the 40s. So I'm talking about like Maryland or Michigan, University of Michigan,
Delaware.
University of Delaware, right? Those types of schools, usually in the 40s. And what's interesting, at least in this process, or surprising, I should say, to a lot of parents, is that they find out that sometimes the private colleges with the higher sticker prices can actually end up costing you less than the state schools, mostly because the higher sticker price private colleges have more of an endowment. They have more money to give out. The average discount at a private college is 55% across the country. The average for all colleges is 48.6%, but private colleges tend to discount more, and discounting means free money. It means either need-based or merit-based money. So more often than not, colleges are even though the prices are going up, they're playing this discounting game, and that percentage increases every year, according to the National Association of Collegiate Business Officers. So you shouldn't have to pay sticker price. Paying sticker price is a choice. At any given college, roughly 25% or so of families pay full price only. They're subsidizing the other 75%. So it's your choice, what pile you want to be in. Now that doesn't mean that you can say, okay, I'm going to go into Harvard, I'm going to pay, I'm getting a 48.6% discount. These are national, averages. What about the cost of attendance for a SUNY? Because we're in New York here. Check out just make sure no one's asking comments or having problems on Facebook.
About 12,000, 13,000. Just on this morning.
Okay, so tuition might be around there, but the total cost around $25,000 once you add the room and board and everything. So it's hard for middle class or upper middle class families to get a private $60,000-$70,000 cost down to a SUNY or in-state level, depending on where you live. But it's not crazy. We have seen that every year. We see that in our practice. So again, the average discount is 48.6%. Only 25% of families pay full price. Most aid goes to families in the top quartile, top 25% of income. Which is not to be political, but that bothers a lot of advocates for low-income families, and saying that colleges are giving money to the people who don't need it as much. But colleges can do whatever they want. That's one of the themes I want to get across. Even if it's not fair, that they're giving money to people that you think shouldn't get it, or it's not fair that they admit certain people not because of grades and scores, because of other things. It doesn't have to be fair. That's just the way it is. Right, Pearl?
That's true.
There's a number at Stanford, 70% of the kids that ace the SATs don't get into Stanford.
70% of kids who have perfect SAT scores don't get into Stanford? Yeah, I believe that.
That apply there, yeah.
Yeah, I believe that. And the reason for that is that it's not a meritocracy. Flat out. I mean, you have to have good grades and scores if you're not a special category, a special category. So what that means is at Stanford and most elite and competitive colleges, they will reserve anywhere from 2/3 to 80% of their incoming class for non-academic reasons, which means underrepresented minorities, international students, legacies, people whose parents went there, recruited athletes. Say that one?
Musicians.
Anyone who's recruited, and development cases, which means affluent, ultra affluent families are hoping to develop into donors. So,
Makes
yeah,
sense.
I know.
Why am I not surprised about that?
Again, and it's it's kind of, you may have your own opinions about it. I mean, I have my own opinions about that, but it's just the truth. That's just the way it works. So, a lot of parents, and that's not you guys, because you're learning about this stuff now, but a lot of parents at the end of the process find out that their kid went 1 for 20 or didn't get into any of the schools that they deserved to get into, and frankly a lot of that expectation is built up because you're taking advice from guidance counselors who look at programs like Naviance. Everyone know what Naviance is?
Yeah.
Or anyone not know what Naviance is? So Naviance is and by the way, if you're addicted to Naviance, we have a support group.
Yes.
So you're not. Denial is usually one of the first signs. So Naviance is a software that most high schools use to help kids handicap their chances of getting into those schools. So it looks at a few factors, but there's some severe flaws with it that lead to this this admissions Armageddon, as we call it, potentially. So a Naviance will look at your grades as a student and your scores and compare those two data points against the other population of kids from your high school who got into whatever college you're looking at that moment. So if you're interested in going to Syracuse University and you attend St. Dominic's High School, you can see the other kids from St. Dom's who got into that to Syracuse over the last 2 years or 3 years. The flaws are that grades and scores are, of course, important, but they are roughly 60% of the factors that is weighted by admissions committees at top schools. And that statistic does not come from me. That comes from sort of a mentor of ours who was on the admissions committee of Princeton University for 30 years. So talking to him is like talking to the burning bush. That's why I always feel when we chat. So 40% of the admissions decision is ignored by Naviance, and that means extracurricular activities, and we can talk about that if you are interested and we have time. The rest of the story is that at most colleges, you're not competing with kids from your high school at all. You're competing with kids all over the world. Today's the college admissions, structure or I don't know, landscape is largely has been changed by the international students. So I don't know if any of you guys feel the way we do. When Pearl went to Cornell, I went to Wesleyan. We know a lot of we went to. She grew up Long Island. I grew up in Massachusetts. We know a lot of kids who went to schools like Miami or Northeastern or whatever, who were not necessarily, not to be offensive, not the the brightest bulbs in the chandeliers, and now Miami, Northeastern are way up here in rankings. So have you guys ever felt like, how did that school become so hard to get into all of a sudden? It was so easy when I was growing up. So I want to caution you guys not to think that way. It's hard. It's easier said than done to do that. But if you're wondering how that happened, it's really two reasons. One is the intense recruiting of overseas students. There's relatively the same amount of seats available as there's been a slight increase when we were all we're all about the same age when we were applying. But what's really changed is, number one, all these colleges opening up, offices in the Arab Emirates and in China and other places to recruit international students who pay full price, by the way, not coincidentally. And the second thing is the percentage of kids applying to college has increased. And I guess the third thing is that the Common Application has made it really easy to click a button and apply to 50 colleges. So there's more applications going in also. So those are the three, and the marketing by these colleges. I mean, I think that's the other reason.
Well, and they also in USA and News, the rankings.
Yeah.
The more kids that they can get to apply
Right.
means the fewer kids as a percentage are going to accept, which is going to push their ranking up higher. It's a game.
Yeah. So this marketing leads to more selectivity. So that was the point there. So the more the more selective a college appears, the higher the rankings, and the more they can brag to their alumni base and their institutional stakeholders, and it's easier for them to raise money, see how great we're doing, and all that. Which is another reason why a lot of kids are very sadly mistaken when they think they're being courted by colleges. Oh my God, I have an interview with Harvard. What does that mean? And what I say is, well, you know what that really means, or do you not want me to say it? what that really means is that anyone applies to Harvard gets an interview, and the interviews are conducted by Harvard alumni, more to keep them in the community as opposed to, be an outreach type of activity to the kids. So there's always another side to this, and I guess the bottom line is that college is a business, even though they are institutions. Nonprofit institutions, they are businesses, and the flip side of the coin that I think every family should understand and every kid should understand, which is, I can guarantee you this is stuff that you guys don't think about, is that whether you realize it or not, you're in business for yourselves, because they are marketing to you and bragging about themselves and sending all those brochures with all the kids who are from every multi-ethnic, background, and everyone's smiling and frolicking outside on the quad, even if the school's in northern Minnesota and it's 30 below zero. Nobody has a zit, which implies if you go there, you won't have acne. So they're doing that, and what you have to do at the same time is say, okay, well, I know that there's 5,000 other kids who have the same grades and scores as I do, but this is why I'm different. And you have to demonstrate in your application and your essays and in targeting majors and all these other types of things why they should take you compared to the other 5,000 kids who have the same grades and scores. And that's your job, because you don't want to be perceived as a commodity that's all the same, like a gallon of milk or a tube of toothpaste. Those are commodities. You don't want to be commodity when you apply. Did you have a question?
Yes,
Yeah.
I just wanted to add to that,
Yeah.
if we could put it on the board too. Because I feel like we need to discern your daughter or son. How do you do that?
Oh, great
What
question.
kinds of things do we need to, obviously grades are one thing, but you're saying it's so much more than that. So
Yeah.
what are the things that we should be?
Okay.
Can I, ACTs versus SATs, is that something
Sure.
to touch upon?
Okay, we can talk about that.
Since they didn't have ACTs when we were growing up.
Yeah.
Well, no, you know what? They did have ACTs.
Did they?
It's just that people
No
in
one
the
did.
right. If you grew up in the East Coast or the West Coast, you
Yes.
never heard of it. And then if you grew up in the interior of the country, everyone took the ACT. Yeah, yeah. It's funny, right? Marketing. I mean, the SAT lost market share to the ACT. There are more people taking the ACT than the SAT as of like I think 3 or 4 years ago. And then coincidentally, the SAT changed their format. Yeah, and now strangely, the SAT is more ACT-like.
Yeah.
Yeah, odd, right?
Yes.
Yeah, but the College Board is a nonprofit institution also. So I'm just imagining things. I have a very active imagination. So all right, so that's I guess that's overview. So Pearl, you pick the next one.
Let's see, well,
Make it count.
are we going to continue with the overview with financial aid?
Yes.
And what forms
Good.
and,
Go ahead.
okay.
And the
So-
timeline. And the timeline.
And the timeline. Okay. Well, beginning this year, it was different last year and years before. The FAFSA, there are two main financial aid forms. One is the FAFSA and one is the CSS profile. For all schools, approximately 4,000 out there, if you are seeking aid, you're required to submit the FAFSA. Okay, that's a free form. It has about 170 odd questions, and
FAFSA?
Yeah.
108.
108.
Yeah.
108 or so questions. And then this additional form, the CSS profile, many of those schools, so of about the 4,000, there are about 300 odd schools that require this second additional financial aid form called the CSS profile. Both forms will become available for current seniors this October, as in a few days from now. Both the CSS and the FAFSA will become available, and the big change
Wait,
from
do you want to share your startling discovery the other day? You were all giddy.
the CSS profile is actually out already.
Seriously, she was like excited. It was
I did.
pathetic.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because technically it's not supposed to come
I
out
know.
until October
So
1st,
dorky.
but I
Yeah.
am a little dorky about this, and I happened to happen on it, and I said,
Right.
it's here, it's available, I can
Right.
see the questions. Okay.
The new phone books are here.
Yeah, exactly. But so it's not a choice, it's if the school that you're applying to only requires the FAFSA, then the FAFSA is what you would complete and submit in order to be considered for aid. And if your school requires both the CSS profile and the FAFSA, you submit both. How do you know? You would look on the school's website itself. Okay, applying when? They become available. Gave you the sneak preview. One of them is already available. FAFSA is not. I've checked. But each school is going to have its own priority financial aid deadline depending on how you are applying to that school. If you are applying early action or early decision, then your deadline, also found on the school's website, will be sometime in the fall. Could be as early as October 15th, and they're usually in 15-day increments. November 1st, a lot of schools are due, November 15th, etc. If you're applying regular decision, then your priority financial aid deadline is somewhat later in the year, beginning in January, and again in increments. What information are you going to use? Which is your base year for your income? That has changed this year. Now, for the current seniors who are graduating in 2017, the tax year that your award is going to be based on is your 2015 tax return. So it's a 2-year look back at your income.
What
However,
about savings?
However, your assets, and we will go into which assets and how do they count and which count more, which don't count at all. Your assets need to be true on the form as of the day you're submitting it. So there is no look back with respect to your assets that you're putting on the form, but your income is from 2015. Eventually, so that's the base year they'll be judging you. Eventually, you will, on the FAFSA, update your information once your 2016 tax return is completed. You basically, and then they will consider that information as well. On the CSS profile, again, the base year is still the 2015 tax year, but then they're going to be asking your recent income, is how they put it now, which is your 2016 info, your estimated recent income, and then they're also asking for your projected income, which is 2017's income. Okay, so that is the basic lay of the land. And then within that, okay, so those are the two main forms. When you file the financial aid forms, that then triggers each of the schools you submit financial aid forms to prepare an award package for your student. And that will trigger, of course, other requests once they see what you're about. For example, if you are a self-employed business owner, and once they know this, once they've received your form, that will trigger may trigger something called a business farm supplement request. That is more information about the self-employed business owner, etc.
Or farmer. How many people are
Or farmer.
on farms here? One,
Wow, so
two,
many.
okay, 0. Good. On Facebook?
Crickets. Okay. So,
How
Ellen, do
they-
you want a farm?
How
Yes.
do they value those assets? Homes, things like that?
okay, well, this is another key difference between the two forms. The FAFSA asks fewer questions and considers less information than the CSS profile. And the CSS profile, the schools requiring it are typically the schools that are private and have greater endowments to give. So the logic, I guess, goes hand in hand with, since they have more money to give, they're going to analyze your financial information with more scrutiny. What does that mean? On the FAFSA, in your assets that you're putting down, you do not include the value of your primary residence. It belongs nowhere on the FAFSA. However, on the CSS profile, they want to know the current value of your home, your primary residence, what you have owed against it, when you purchased it, how much did you purchase it for?
May I pick a bone with you?
Of course.
Okay, who is supposed to answer that?
Okay. Believe it or not, I don't know how much of your finances you actually share with your children, but the questions of both of these forms are posed to the student. So you're answering this as if you're the student, but we do caution you from having your student fill this out.
Questions include the value of your house, of your parents' house, what they pay for it, what year they buy it, what are their mortgage payments, how much do your parents have in investments, do you anticipate any help from other family members or friends to help pay for college? That's one of my favorite
Like the
ones.
bragging rich uncle. I got
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
Don't
So-
have that.
But in all seriousness, so the College Board is also the ones behind this more complicated form, the CSS profile that she mentioned, and the all that information about applying on using the CSS profile does not go to the parents; it goes to the kid, because they're the ones who have the College Board username and ID. So you have to monitor this process if you're using your child's information. And by the way, that continues all the way through college. You have to make sure, because we've had clients who delayed filing, they missed deadlines because their kids blew off all of the communications. And delay is death in financial aid. You can actually be totally eligible for thousands and thousands of dollars, but if you miss a priority deadline, which varies by college, that has to be looked up.
and how you're applying to that college.
In general, you have to look up each college's deadline. If you miss it, they could say, sorry, try next year. You had a question?
Well, I was at another, my school had this past week information, they were talking about the FSA program and stuff, but they
The
said
FSA
that-
ID?
Yeah, that the parent gets an ID and
Yes.
the student gets an ID.
That's
so
correct.
There are two separate IDs.
Right, so
There's two
I'll,
separate IDs to sign
Right,
FAFSA.
right.
look, I'll
And
just touch on
That
that.
was the other thing that they pointed out. You have to electronically sign them,
Mm-hmm.
or they get kicked back, and it doesn't. It kind of messes you up.
Mm-hmm.
Kind
It
of,
was like
yeah.
a big thing they talked
Yeah.
about.
Yes, so let me just,
People forget to do that.
right,
There's so many ways to
That's
make
right.
mistakes, and there are substantive mistakes in terms of where to put your money, which is what we usually focus more on. But she does all the nuts and bolts logistics, and she files forms, like 300 forms a year. So yeah, but so the point is, you make any little mistake, even if it's innocuous, you feel like it's just no big deal. It could literally cost you thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. That's the problem.
yeah.
Do you want to talk FSAID? Or,
Well, let me
okay.
just touch on it,
Right.
because the FSAID, if any of you have kids that are older who've gone through the college financial aid application process, they used to have pins that you would use to electronically sign your forms. They did away with that about 2 years ago, replaced it with the FSAID system. And with that, you would apply for it and get a username and a password. And the FSAID allows you to electronically sign the FAFSA and submit it. And that would require the student's electronic signature as well as one parent's electronic signature. So that's why a parent would also need it. And the other use of the FSAID, ultimately, when you've chosen a school and you are in the loan process, you would use your FSAID. The student would use to accept and complete all loan documents for that school, student loans. And the parent, if the parent is seeking a Parent Plus loan, they would use their ID to obtain that Parent Plus loan. So those are the uses of the FSAID, and that's about it. It's nothing fancier than that.
You talk about which schools require which forms?
That some schools require that every school would require the FAFSA, and some schools require. Yes, we did. We touched on it.
So just so you know, you have that varies, and you have to look that up, and that changes each year also. And you have to look at each school's website, and there's other forms too.
Yes,
That
many
possibly
schools
may come
also
in.
have what's called an institutional form, and again, it is typically these more competitive, more generous schools will ask their own form and ask their own questions that go into an even deeper dive than some of the picky questions on the CSS. A few other big distinctions between the forms. So the FAFSA, as I said already, you do not include the value of your primary residence on the FAFSA. No place, nowhere. However, if you have any,
I'm sorry, if you do that, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
and we have had
That's because you're overinflating your net worth of your investments.
right,
That decreases your eligibility.
and therefore decreases the aid.
Yeah.
Exactly. So another big difference between the forms, the FAFSA does not want to know about any of your retirement assets. Do not include them on the FAFSA.
And same comment, if you make a mistake and include your 401k, IRAs, whatever, you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly, and sometimes where people can get messed up with this, maybe their retirement assets are invested in a stock portfolio. So therefore somebody may say, oh, well, that's a stock, I have to put it, because it says stock, I should put that as my asset. If it's a retirement vehicle that is invested that way, it does not belong on the FAFSA. However, on the CSS profile, they want to know your retirement assets. It technically is not used in the formula, however, they are asking for this information.
Right? In other words, it's kind of silly. Like, why would they want to know that if they're not going to penalize you for it? For the most part, I really do believe that, not to sound naive, that they're not penalizing you for it. But we're talking about really two things with that example. One is there's a financial aid formula which kind of differs depending on which forms you submit. But the other side of the story is that colleges have discretion to be able to use what they refer to as professional judgment, or with anything to mitigate or to consider other non-formulaic factors. So that could be one of them, because sometimes financial aid officers are very judgy. We've heard some crazy things like, well, you have a college degree, how come you didn't go to work? To a mom who was saying we need more money. It's bizarre. Anyway,
Right.
any other differences? Then I want to talk about what counts and what doesn't count.
Okay, in one moment, I'm
Fine.
going to turn it over to
Go,
you, but
fine.
the other important thing to keep in mind, on the FAFSA or any schools that you're applying to where it's a FAFSA-only school, there is no opportunity on the FAFSA to provide any explanation that would shed light